I am Kjell Kvanbeck, writer, director of Golden.
Justin Newcomb, the producer of Golden.
Golden is a short film about life and losing the ones that we love. It follows a man who comes home on the morning of his 50th wedding anniversary, and he finds that his wife has passed away. And it's just kind of an exploration of how we deal with those monumental changes in our lives. The idea really came from several influences in my own life. I was extremely lucky because I got to watch my paternal grandparents grow old together, and the bond that they shared was just something that always kind of astounded me. And I, never thought that in this day and age, when you don't respond to a text in 5 minutes and the other person gets upset, I just thought that was kind of something of the past, and I wouldn't find it. And I got engaged, and for the first time in my life, I felt that I could attain that bond with someone, and the story just kind of came to me. So it was it's a very personal story. It's from several close things to my heart. So
My role as a producer for Golden was to help Kjell bring Golden to life because, as far as crew, finding actors, locations, and helping him kind of be there to listen to him, or he could bounce ideas off of ourselves, bounce them off ourselves, and just kind of be there for support because it's a lot, especially when you're creating something that's so personal. It's very emotional, and there's just a lot of things to kind of handle. So I'm there to kind of wrangle things and make sure things are in place, or ask people questions, or reach out to people and try and do research, and just to help him as much as possible, kind of, and be there in any way, shape, or form. He needs his shoes polished, his laundry cleaned, some coffee, it doesn't matter. Just make it as easy for him to focus on making the story and thinking about how to bring it to fruition in a successful way. Kjell and I actually met at Columbia in Chicago, and we were in a screenwriting class together, a very interesting screenwriting class, but we won't talk about that. So we got to know each other, and we had a lot in common. One night we went out for a couple of drinks, and we had a good time talking to each other. He was telling me that he was getting ready to work on some stuff, and I was excited to get back in the game. And so we just kept in contact. He moved back to Minneapolis. I still lived in Chicago, and he eventually reached out to me. What was it, October? September, October. He's like, "So I'm making this movie. I need your help." And I said, "All right. What do we do?" I think we've actually talked about it quite a bit, and as far as where we make movies and where we'd like to stay, is we both kind of agree the Midwest, just because there's so many great filmmakers, so many great crews in the Midwest, and the work ethic, and just everyone just always puts themselves out there. There's never this is my job and this is the only thing I'm going to do. It's always, they're willing to do whatever it takes just because they believe in the story. So I think for me personally, I don't see myself ever coming to LA, maybe to shoot a movie, but as far as living, the Midwest, I would love to bring, more films to the Midwest, do what I can, to help other filmmakers, you know, be able to live off of, what they love to do.
All right. Well, in that case, I guess a good question for that would be, how is making a movie like being in the military?
How is making the movie like being in the military? There really is nothing like being in the military. It's, I mean, it's organized and there's structure to it, like a film set, but people in the military kind of it's a rigid, like, this is what you do and that's it. And you learn that very, very, early on. To whereas filmmaking, it's a collaborative effort. Like, they'll listen to you if you have, if a grip has a suggestion, I'm willing to listen to it. It doesn't matter that he's a grip and you didn't write the story. I'm open, and we're open as filmmakers as in a collaboration. To whereas in the military, not so much of a collaboration, more like lemmings. See that cliff, walk off it. Yes, sir. So there's really no similarity in my opinion, but my father was really responsible for me as far as handling long hours, because he always had a habit of waking us up at 5 in the morning every day when we were younger, and then we'd have chores, and from chores there was a routine that we always followed. So the military was kind of like growing up with my father, and which it all helps, a combination of things. But the military helped me realize what it is to how important it is to kind of do what you want to do, follow that dream, do what makes you happy. Don't listen to anybody else, because if you're not happy with what you're doing, your life is gonna reflect that. Your relationships, everything you do. So I think it helped me realize that I need to follow my dreams, and help me decide that filmmaking is what I wanted to pursue.
It's casting was an interesting process. I had originally cast a woman to play Maria in the film, and what happened was we were going to shoot in northern Wisconsin, and we kind of were working on some things, and I was working on this guy that I had in mind for Hank, because Hank has always been a character that, since I wrote it, I just couldn't imagine anyone actually playing him, because I had this idea in my head that was so real. And so I finally found a guy that I could see as Hank, and I worked on him for a while, and I couldn't get him to commit one way or the other, and we were kind of in a pickle, because the shooting dates were coming up and he wouldn't give me an answer, and my friend Jack reached out to me, and she said, well, why don't you try Bane Belke? And I said, well, I can't send my work to Bane Belke, because he's been a fixture of the Minneapolis theater scene for the last 50 years, and I admire his work. But I did, and he responded right away, and he liked the script, and so we moved the production to Minneapolis, and oddly enough, we were going to have to recast Maria, and he said, well, how about Wendy Lair? And I was like, well, there's another huge name that is intimidating. And so he sent her the script, and she jumped on board, and luckily the two of them have literally been working together in theater for the last 50 years. So it's almost like they've been married for 50 years anyway, and so they're great friends. And there was a great moment on set where, we're about to shoot the final shot of this film, and it's a very somber tone at that point. But before the camera's rolling, Bane is sitting at the table singing show tunes to Wendy, and the crew's laughing, and then we roll, and he's in character like that. And so it was a series of happy accidents that I ended up with the perfect cast. This is what I would have imagined in my head. So I would say as far as taking something from the page to the screen, it's always an interesting process. But I write it in such a way that I'm pretty strict about what we shoot as far as how it reads on paper. And as far as direction is concerned, the one thing I like to do, or I like to have, is Bane was he reacted a lot to the script, and he had a lot of ideas, and I just really like that collaboration between the two of us, because I feel like we're building a character together versus me hammering an idea of mine into his head and trying to make him play at something. I feel we're creating a very real three-dimensional person as we come up with these ideas together. So we were by the time Bane and Wendy were on board for the film, we were about a week and a half away from shooting. So it was we had little time to rehearse, but what we did was we just met up and had coffee and talked about the script, and you know, it was better than any rehearsal we could have had, I think. So there's a strategy to it, but I'll let Justin handle that.
So the strategy and how we came up with the strategy for Golden is the first thing we talked about was audience, and kind of knowing that we wanted to take it to a feature and kind of putting that into the equation as well, because that's where we have some potential investors in the Midwest. So we focused on a lot of smaller regional festivals near where the investors live, so they can see what we're capable of doing. And then, of course, we submitted to some of the bigger festivals with hopes of getting in. But I think a lot of the research, and as far as what festivals we entered into, had a lot to do with who was going to be purchasing the tickets. And although Golden, the thing I love about it is how it transcends age. You know, everybody's been in love with something, whether it's been for 50 years or, you know, your first love. Like, we can all relate to losing someone we love. So although the audience could be broad, it really hits home with a lot of older audience members. So we kind of looked for areas and festivals that played and would cater to that kind of specific audience. And the thing we liked about Dances with Films is they're defiantly independent. Perfectly, their tagline really describes who they are. They're all about the filmmakers. I mean, they all have been wonderful. Leslie, Michael, and Jonah, like, unbelievably helpful from the beginning. And we did a lot of research on Dance with Films. We found out that everybody had tremendous things to say about the festival, so we reached out, and luckily we were here and we screened and we got a good reaction, and so it's exciting. Oh, I think as far as things we do differently, there's always stuff to be learned, and that's the amazing thing about filmmaking, is things are always changing. And I think that we might, for the feature for Golden that we'll be working on next, I think we might bring on a publicist a little bit earlier on, a unit publicist, and start from the beginning. But we definitely have a head start as far as publicity, because it's going to be the same movie, the short. We still have Facebook, we have our website, but kind of try and interact more with our audience as while we're preparing the script and through, you know, shooting it, to kind of continually engage them and kind of become more active and get some help on that end too, because it's time consuming.
Right.